hate the fact that I have to make this video right now. But if you have not been to my channel before, hi, my name is Sydney. I am a speech and hearing science major at Ohio State University, and I am chronically ill. For those of you who have been here before, you may notice that things look a little bit different. That is because I have moved into my own apartment and out of the dorms. So I am growing up. I am one step closer to being a real person. But yeah, I took a brief hiatus over the summer, just working and dealing with more problems with my illness. I've gotten more answers, I've had more admissions, something that I'll talk about in later videos. I plan to be more active now. I'm posting at least once a week, but we will see how that ends up going since my life has been very unpredictable. And I guess that's kind of what I want to talk about today. On September 9th of this year, 2021, I got a call in the evening that my father passed away. And whenever I say that, it's followed by, I'm so sorry, my condolences, how did it happen, I didn't realize he was sick, what was wrong, what happened, was it expected? And it's hard to respond to that because the nature of my father's death was just so unexpected, so unpredictable, and so sudden that I never really had time to process it. I woke up that morning feeling totally fine. It was a usual morning. I had my schedule going. I came home. I went to go work out. I came home from work, went to go work out that day, delayed my workout a little bit, got all caught up, and that's when I called my mom as usual. And because I was trying to get in touch with my dad all day, I couldn't get in touch with him. He wasn't responding. I left a message for him. I tried texting him, calling his cell, calling the house. And I was on the phone with my mom, and she was coming home from work that day. And all of a sudden, I just heard, because I heard her walk through the door, and she said, I have to go, Daddy's unconscious. And I did not hear from her for the next 2 hours. So I spent that 2 hours absolutely freaking out, absolutely panicking. I was on the floor, I was very worried. I didn't know what was wrong. It could have been anything. It could have been a heart attack, it could have been a stroke, it could have been an aneurysm, it could have been anything. Like, I had no clue. And I had no clue if he was okay. So I wasn't really getting responses from anyone, from my mom, from my aunt, from my sister. My sister and I were texting. My sister does not live at home either. So we were just texting and calling each other and just trying to figure out what was going on. And that's when I got the call a couple hours later that he's gone. And this is where my trigger warning is going to come in. There is going to be talk of death, dying, overdose, and self-harm and suicide. So if you are sensitive to any of those topics, I highly recommend that you skip this video. I have a lot of other videos on my channel that just might not be the right video for you. So continuing on, my father has been struggling with depression for years, for almost his whole life. And I knew this. There was an attempt in 2008 when I was a lot younger, and I didn't really fully understand it, but I didn't know he was struggling this time. No one had any idea. His therapist didn't know, his doctor didn't know, mom didn't know, no one knew. But he, to spare some of the details, it was an intentional overdose, and it happened earlier in the day. And no one found him until my mom came home later around 4 o'clock from work. So at that point, you just kind of feel numb. You just felt so numb. I didn't know what to do. I knew I had to get on a flight back home. I knew I had to pack, and I had to book this flight, and I needed to get to New York as soon as possible. I didn't know what I was feeling. I had friends there. They were like, you can cry, you want to cry, but you go through this initial shock, and this shock lasts for about 20 to 30 minutes. And I'm only speaking in my own experience. It's different for everyone, but in my experience, you have this shock that lasts for 20, 30 minutes, and the world just feels like it's ending. Like, nothing feels real anymore. And I just said, let me email my boss, my professors, let me text a few friends, let them know what happened, check in with some of my family members, and go to sleep, get on a plane the next morning, and see my family. And as you're headed home, like, I remember waking up, this happened on a Thursday, I woke up Friday morning, and I just, again, just numb. I felt sick, and I just said, I'm not going home for this. This is not real. I don't have to fly home for this. I'm gonna go home, he's gonna be there. But then that reality kind of hits, and the person on the plane next to me must have thought I was some psychopath, because I'm sitting there crying the whole time, and that was the worst plane ride I think I've ever been on, and thank God it was only an hour. But yeah, it was the hardest getting home. And then once I was home, everything just hit. All the emotions, everything just hit, and you're just so focused on, I have to get stuff done, I have to get stuff done. And it didn't help that I'm also being reminded of all the stuff that I have to do, all my schoolwork, my work, and all the legal stuff, and, you know, all the logistics kind of come in after that initial shock. You start thinking, what happens next? What happens next? Everyone's just so focused on the next step that you miss out on that period that is supposed to be the grieving period. We're supposed not to, just don't worry about anything, but everything just comes flooding into your mind at once, and it's just so overwhelming. So you have all these emotions, you have this huge to-do list of things you have to do, and you're missing the person who you love the most. So I guess that's kind of initially what happened. I'm not going to speak more about the actual situation. I don't feel like it's the right time. I just don't feel comfortable, and I feel like those details are better kept private, but I do want people to know what the cause of death was, and I think that it's important that people know, because it affects so many people. But I just kind of wanted to go ahead and talk about my own experience in the first month of grieving, and some myths that have gone around that are just not true, and I really just, at least for me, and I really just want to make that very clear. So I guess the first thing, and I really hate that I have to say this, and I really hate this as a thing, this is not a joke. Death is not a joke. Suicide is not a joke. None of this is a joke. And I hate the fact that I have had people laugh at my situation, make jokes about my situation, and be very lighthearted about my situation. It's not okay by any means for that to happen. That is just not okay. During this time, you're very sensitive. Anything can set you off. Absolutely anything can set you off. You are just a ball of emotions, and it's just a roller coaster. And death is not funny. It is not funny by any means. And anyone who thinks it is really does need to rethink their morals, their values, their ethics, and should probably seek out some form of help, because it's not a funny thing, especially suicide. Suicide is not funny. I hear almost daily people saying, oh, like, I'll kill myself if this happens, or they make jokes about it, or they're very lighthearted about it. And I understand that some people, that's their coping mechanism. They might have gone through it themselves. Trust me, I've been there, I've done it before, I'm guilty of it, and I understand that's a coping mechanism for some people, but I think it's important just to realize that you don't know who you're talking to. If you are talking to a stranger, if you are talking to someone that you're meeting for the first time, someone that you've only met a few times, you don't really know their background, those jokes can be extremely, extremely painful. And if someone asks you to stop, please, please stop. Don't debate it. Don't continue to talk about it. It's just appropriate to stop. And again, I know this is a coping mechanism for some people. Just, you never know what people are struggling with. It's not a joke. This is an extremely, extremely difficult thing to deal with. Sorry, I wrote down some things because I knew I was going to have to, just kind of write out all my thoughts in my notes. So, since this is a very emotional process for me. But yeah, this is a very sensitive topic, and it's just important just to keep that in mind when you're talking to someone. You don't need to tiptoe, especially for me. Don't tiptoe around it. Please do not tiptoe around it. It's okay to talk about it. What's not okay is to talk about it in an insensitive way. Another thing that I want to talk about is I've been finding this at the 2-3 week mark that people think your grieving is done. They just do. They think that, you had the funeral, you've had your couple of weeks, now you're back to normal, you're back to your classes, you're back to work, not like you're okay, grieving's done, and you're not still experiencing all these crazy emotions. These emotions do not stop. Grieving is not done after the 2 to 3 week period. It could take 3 years, it can take 5 years, it can take your entire life. You will never stop missing that person. You have lost a huge part of your life. My father and I were very, very, very close. I have lost one of my best friends, and I will never see him again. That's a lot to process. That's not something that can just go away. That's not something that's just gonna, it's not like a broken leg where it, takes like a few weeks, a few months, whatever, and it's just gonna heal and you're fine from there. No, this is a lifelong thing. And there are days that I struggle a lot more, and I find myself not being able to use my father's death as an excuse for not being able to get to something, or forgetting to do something, or feeling distraught, or anything like that. And then what I have to remember is that it is a very valid excuse. I have just gone through a huge, huge trauma that was completely unexpected. I had no preparation for this. And you're left with all these questions, especially with suicide. You're left with so many questions, so many things, and it's such a horrific, horrific way for someone to die. So that trauma takes a long time to heal, and it's important just to realize that if someone is forgetting something or, lashing out while they're grieving, and just remember that we're experiencing a range of emotions all the time. We're always to some degree sad, and it has to be an excuse sometimes. It has to. It's not an easy fix. We're constantly hurting, constantly. Like, you would not ask someone who broke their ankle to start running after 2 weeks, start running track again after 2 weeks. I think that's the best comparison I can make. You wouldn't do that, so you wouldn't expect the same of someone who is grieving. And that kind of leads me to the next thing, that if you have not been through it, you don't know what it's like. There is no other time in my life that I've ever felt this way. And I think the best way for me to explain it is just that you can go from 0 to 100 in minutes. I can be totally fine 1 minute, next 3 minutes I'm hysterically crying, and then I'm back to fine. It's just, you are just experiencing so many emotions and so many things, and so many little things can set it off. So many little things. Like, I saw someone wearing a polo shirt that he normally wore and just started bawling. And, or if you just kind of hear something that he would always say, you start crying, and you really just don't know what it's like until you have to go through it. You don't know. There's no other thing that I can think of that this is like. I have never experienced this before, and you're kind of navigating it. So I think the best thing for someone who has not gone through the process is just to not offer any advice about it. You can't bring the person back. You cannot fix the situation. And it's important just to remember that. And it's also important just to remember you have no clue what it's like unless you have been through it, or unless you have been through something extremely similar. So if you have been through it and you want to give advice, and they're open, and someone who's grieving is open to advice, by all means, that is okay. I've reached out to people that I know that have lost parents or have lost friends to suicide, and that has been really helpful. But if you have not gone through it, you really just don't know what it's like. And that's okay. And the best thing to do is just not offer advice. In my opinion, in my case, that's what I believe is best. And something else that's important to note is that you never really feel great. People ask me all the time, how are you doing? How are you feeling? What are you feeling? Are you okay? And the answer is usually I don't know. I really don't know, but it's never I'm doing great. It's never I'm having a great time. It's always some degree of sadness, and the sadness might be here, the sadness might be here. I really just don't know. And I've been honest with people, and I said today is okay, right now is okay. Yesterday was really tough. This morning was really hard. I had a really difficult past week, and just it's okay to ask. And in my case, it's okay to ask me if I'm doing okay. I'm okay with that. Just know that the answer is never probably going to be very positive. It's never really going to be very positive until a little while from now. I never really feel great. I miss him every second of the day. And even when I go to sleep, I don't get a break because he's always in my dreams. I'm thinking about him 24/7, and that is heart-wrenching. It really is hard as all hell. So, yeah, my answer is usually going to just be, I don't know, or just know that it's never really that great. I'm still really, really sad. Next thing is that sharing unsolicited advice or unsolicited beliefs about death, in my case, is just not appreciated. People often have been saying to me, well, he's in heaven, he's listening to you, he's always with you, you know, like he's having a great time in the afterlife. And the truth is that I don't know what my beliefs are. I am Jewish, I was raised Jewish, so that's where a lot of my beliefs came from, but again, I just don't know exactly what I believe, and it might take some time, but I personally just don't appreciate it when people start telling me stuff like this, because a lot of it is conflicting. And I've done a lot of research about people who have died and been resuscitated, about what they saw, and some people said it was just nothing, or some people said I was in a beautiful valley with a ton of flowers, and I see people, and I saw my body, and I don't know what is true. And I think the answer is I will never know what is true until it happens to me. And I want to try and figure out what I believe, and having other people share their beliefs confuses the heck out of me. I get so confused, and then I start going down a hole with it, and it is scary. It is very scary. So some people might find comfort in hearing what others believe. I personally do not find comfort in that. I don't like it when people say he's in heaven, or he's watching over you, or he's your angel, or stuff like that. I don't like that, because I find that it just is messing with the grieving process for me, and it's not healthy for me to be hearing stuff like that. And the last and final thing that I really want to touch upon is that everything changes. My life is totally different now. My dad was the primary provider for my family. He provided 90% of our income. He was the one who our insurance was under. He also was just such a helpful balance to have when it came to my mom and my dad and parenting, since they both have different parenting styles, but they balanced each other out so well, and that helped a lot in growing up. And now that's all gone. It's gone. It changed in a second. And now you're realizing that things are changing. Things are gonna change. My life is different. And I am going to have to deal with that. But just know that I don't know if this is true for a lot of other people who have lost parents, but this is not only difficult emotionally, but financially, relationship-wise, things change. Everything is so different now. And I think I'm kind of realizing that it's never going to go back to the way it was. This is a new reality that I am trying to navigate, and it's going to take time, it's going to take help, but it just kind of helps when people are sensitive to that situation, that things are very different, and I'm moving forward very differently than I was before, especially with my healthcare. Like, I mean, my dad's name was the health insurance. He provided the health insurance. And now I'm worried about that. I'm worried about, am I able to get to the doctor? Is my medical stuff going to be covered? I'm a very sick person, and there's a lot of stuff that I need financially and healthcare wise, and my next worry is how am I going to be able to get that? So it just kind of helps when people are sensitive to that situation. And now my mom is in a very difficult position, and I just feel terrible for her that she has to go through all of this, because she's having a period of time where she's trying to grieve too, and she's also going through her huge to-do list, and her to-do list is a lot bigger than mine. I don't know how she does it. She has become superwoman at this point. Like, I am so insanely impressed with her, and she's also a rock for my sister and I. And I am just amazed by how she's dealt with the situation, and she's just so strong. And I think that the best way that we've been trying to help her is by spreading our GoFundMe. Right now, I will link that in the description if anyone would like to donate to help my mom out right now. Like, just with all the financial hardships that my family's going through right now, it would just really, really, really help her out a lot. Another thing that I do want to link in the description is the suicide hotline and some resources for depression and suicide ideation, because again, I think it is so important that people know how he died. I think it is so important because this is a preventable death. It is a disease, but it is a disease that can be treated, and I think it's just so important that people realize that and know that. They know that there is help. I never want to see someone go through what I'm going through right now and what others have gone through. It is horrible, and I can only imagine what he was feeling that led him down that path. So thank you so much for sticking around for this video. I know this was a lot. Again, I'm planning to just become more active again, and I hope to see you all in my next video. Remember to like, comment, subscribe. I'm planning on producing more chronic illness content and college content and potentially more grief content. So yes, also make sure to follow my Instagram at chronicallysydney and my TikTok at sydneyeds. I will link that in the description too. And stay happy and stay healthy.